All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our second live session. We are streaming simultaneously on Facebook as well as on YouTube. We are recording this session, and it's going to be available to view both on the DCAGT website as well as the Douglas County School District website. So I'm Becca Koster, and I am the president of the Douglas County Association for Gifted and Talented. Before we get started, I'm going to tell you a little bit about DCAGT. So as I said, DCAGT stands for the Douglas County Association of Gifted and Talented, and we are a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We're made up of all volunteers, and we have parents, families, educators, and community members, and we're an affiliate of the Colorado Association for Gifted and Talented. So our purpose is to foster an understanding of all gifted children, including twice exceptional children, and their educational and their social emotional needs. So we work to advocate for the needs of gifted children through partnerships with educators, with parents and families, as well as some organizations. And we work to support the social, emotional, as well as the educational needs of gifted children and their families and caregivers. So with that, we definitely want to honor your time this evening. So it's my pleasure to introduce tonight's speaker, and this is Michelle Oslick. She's a team lead, and I'm going to read this because I have to get all the words right, for gifted education in the Douglas County School District. So she's going to be presenting the first half of our session. And during the second half, we are going to have a question and answer session. So at that time, we'll have Discovery Program parents, former Discovery Program students, and a Discovery Program teacher. So I'm going to go ahead and welcome Michelle. So welcome.
Thank you, Becca, and welcome everybody. I'm so glad you could join us tonight to talk about Douglas County's elementary Discovery Program. Okay. And tonight, we're going to talk about the program, and we're going to talk about the definitions and characteristics of gifted learners, and especially those learners that are gifted and thrive within the Discovery Program. We're going to talk about the program overall to help give you a little background information, the school and site details for where the program is located, and just a little bit of information about the application process and where you can go to find out more about the application process, as well as the materials to begin. But let's start with the definition that we use in Douglas County as far as gifted and talented. And gifted and talented students are those whose abilities, talents, potential, and accomplishments are so exceptional that they require special provisions to meet their educational needs, something that's beyond typical. And here are some of the characteristics of gifted students. Students are not going to show all of these. They'll show some of them, some to great intensity, others to not as much. But for those of you who might be joining via phone, some of those characteristics include that they possess strong problem-solving skills. They learn rapidly with little repetition. They have a high degree of creativity, persistent in seeking task completion. They strive toward perfection, sometimes to a fault, with a lot of perfectionistic tendencies. They could be passionate in one or more area of interest. They possess a large storehouse of information about a variety of topics. Uses advanced vocabulary. Might have a keen sense of humor. This may be the kindergartner who tends to laugh at all the teacher and adult jokes. Very tenacious. They may prefer older companions because their older companions are the ones that can understand and talk with them at the level and about the topics that they want to talk about. They may read early and avidly, or with greater comprehension that you would expect. They are insatiably curious and persistent. They may question authority, and not always in a positive way. They may demonstrate intense emotional or physical sensitivity, and they also tend to be concerned about global issues. Maybe, the 7-year-old who you have to be careful not to have the news or radio on when they're talking about a hurricane that's happening or the current pandemic, just because they might stay up at night. And for students who, when we think about the Discovery Program, students who thrive in the Discovery Program tend to have quite a few of these characteristics. And you know your child is gifted when Amelia Ann Ashton asked her mother 53,297,518 questions in 15 minutes. You may know your child is gifted if that resonates with you and gives you a little bit of a chuckle. So what guides our work? In Douglas County, we want to make sure that our students are able to be responsible citizens who can contribute to our society. We want to make sure we serve the full continuum of learners, okay? And that our learners and our gifted learners feel safe, valued, and connected, that they are able to reach their highest potential. And we want to make sure that our programming is student-focused on the unique needs of all our learners. Okay. We follow the National Association of Gifted Children Gifted Programming Standards, and that instead of providing any single gifted program, a continuum of programming services must exist for gifted learners. So while tonight we're talking about the Discovery Program, which is a single program, it's not the only way that in Douglas County School District we meet the needs of our gifted learners. So part of that continuum that we talk about really is the programming that happens at all of our neighborhood schools. All of our neighborhood schools have gifted education facilitators that work to collaborate and consult with the classroom teachers and other support staff in the building to make sure that the needs of any gifted learner within their building are being met to the greatest extent possible. So some of the programming options that gifted students receive in any of our neighborhood schools could be differentiated instruction, everything from a little bit of a different activity after the math lesson to perhaps full content acceleration where a 5th grader is receiving 6th grade math. Curriculum compacting, where they're compacting down what they need to learn and skipping things that they've already shown mastery of. We talked about that content acceleration, perhaps full grade acceleration, a 2nd grader moving into 3rd grade, possibly mentorships or advanced level courses, tiered assignments where students working on the same assignment but are working on different nuances of that assignment to be tiered to their appropriate level. Cluster grouping, where our gifted students are clustered together in a single classroom, or flexible grouping, where they may move in and out of a specific group based on their need. They may work on independent studies. They may have leadership opportunities or even some project-based learning to help meet the needs of their education, I should say their educational needs. Our elementary discovery program kind of sits at the very end of that continuum. It's our most intensive programming option for students. It's designed to meet the needs of highly gifted students whose abilities are so advanced that they require special provisions. Most likely, these students have already or will soon exhaust the resources that's available through their neighborhood school, that it just isn't reasonable to expect a neighborhood school or a typical school setting to be able to meet their advanced needs. And so we have the Discovery Program, which is located regionally at 3 of our district's elementary schools. So for those who are in the Highlands Ranch area, the Discovery Program is located at Northridge Elementary School. In Parker, it's located at Pine Lane Elementary School. And in Castle Rock, it's located at the Magnet School Renaissance ELOB. The Discovery Program is designed for gifted learners, highly gifted learners in grades 2nd through 6. It's a full-day, self-contained, center-based classroom. So all students within these classrooms have been identified as highly gifted and that they need the intensity of this program. It provides curriculum that's academically rigorous and promotes critical thinking. It provides meaningful peer interaction that supports their social emotional development, and truly by giving them peers that think the way they do, that have the needs educationally and social emotionally that they do. And by clustering them together into these classrooms, we are better able to support those needs. The Discovery Program classrooms are known for having pacing and complexity that's appropriate for highly gifted learners, and that they're really focused on strategies for lifelong learning with the specific needs that highly gifted learners have in mind. We often are asked about the curriculum that is used within the Discovery classrooms, and our Discovery teachers, as we can talk about a little bit in our Q&A with our Discovery teacher who's with us, we don't rely on a single curriculum, or I could say this is exactly what is used in every single Discovery Program classroom, but rather we use the Colorado academic standards as any classroom would, student need, and the instructional goals already mentioned around depth and complexity, as well as the National Association of Gifted Children gifted programming standards to provide curriculum and learning experiences that meet the needs of the Discovery Program students in the classroom at that time. So with that being said, those instructional goals are really around promoting critical thinking and reasoning at advanced levels, to develop effective communication skills, research skills, creative thinking and problem-solving skills. We want to make sure that in the Discovery Program that we're developing cognitive skills that foster independent learning, and that our gifted students are developing an understanding of themselves and others. We want to make sure that we're providing mastery of academic standards, but at a pace, depth, and complexity that's appropriate to the capacity of the gifted learners in this program. And we also want to make sure that we're meeting the needs of gifted learners by helping them develop an understanding of interdisciplinary connections. So when we think about language arts, you'll see in the Discovery Program that we have a lot of conceptual units of study that really is working on those instructional goals like we were talking about. You'll see a lot of integrated theme-based units, shared inquiry discussions, Socratic seminars to help develop that critical thinking, the communication skills. Our Discovery Program teachers will develop novel units that's appropriate for the students in front of them. They'll often use reading and writing workshop, and really work on advanced vocabulary development and advanced writing and research that's appropriate for the needs of the learners in front of them. In math, we want to make sure that we are really delving into what we think of as mathematical habits of mind when we think about making sure that our Discovery Program students have opportunities to reason abstractly and quantitatively, to really persevere in solving difficult problems, being able to support their reasoning and arguments in a variety of ways in writing and speaking, as well as in modeling problems. We want to make sure that they're able to really delve deeply and creatively into mathematical topics, problems, and different projects as well. We want to focus on that problem solving and those skills and strategies that help with mathematical reasoning. And we want to make sure that we're providing acceleration in content and pacing that includes early exposure to probability, statistics, logic, algebraic thinking, all of those different pieces that we know that our highly gifted learners really cling to. So as far as placement decisions for the Discovery Program does require a placement based on an application and a body of evidence review. And so that body of evidence is collected, and placement decisions are based on multiple criteria. No one single piece of a body of evidence would ever be used to place a student into Discovery or to say that this placement wasn't appropriate. So some of the pieces of those body of evidence that are collected are that we have a norm referenced parents' observation scale. We have that same norm referenced observation scale, but for teachers. That teachers submit. We ask for student writing samples as well as other work samples to be provided by teachers to demonstrate a student's current abilities and or potential. We have a student questionnaire that we ask the students to fill out and submit to be able to see their thinking. We ask for evidence of advanced cognitive abilities. This could be the assessment known as COGAT that your student may have already taken. It also could be an assessment that has been given outside of the school setting, or even within the school setting, but on an individual basis. And you would know if your student had taken one of those, especially if the name WISC or DOS, Stanford Binet, those sound familiar to you. We also collect evidence of demonstrated advanced performance and achievement. So it could be school-based assessments, Parker CMAS, depending on what age they are and what it was called at the time, achievement test results, portfolios, again, more of those work samples to show us what they're capable of and what their potential is. And again, when we were talking before about characteristics of gifted students, students that thrive in the Discovery program really have needs beyond what can reasonably be met in a regular classroom. So some of those characteristics at a more definitive level would be measured cognitive aptitude in the top 2 to 5% of age peers, if we're thinking percentiles, anywhere from the 95th percentile or above, demonstrated advanced performance or achievement in multiple areas, that they thrive on challenging learning and thinking opportunities. They have strong task commitment. That might not be the tasks we'd like them to do or the tasks that their teachers are asking them to do in school, but they do have strong task commitment. Okay. An extraordinary degree of intellectual curiosity, and an unusual ability to perceive essential elements and underlying structures and patterns and relationships and ideas. So an unusual ability to make connections, not just within their own thoughts, but with the world around them, different things that they've learned, other people's ideas, things such as that. The students with these 6 pieces tend to really thrive within this program. So as I said, placement into the Discovery program is part of an application process. The application process for this year is open and materials are available. You can find the application on our Douglas County School District website. I highly suggest that what you do is you go to the website, do the A to Z search and go to G and go under Gifted Education. Once you're there, there will be tabs on the left-hand side of the page. There is a tab labeled the Discovery Program. And on that first page, once you click into that, you will find all the links explaining the application process, the first Google form to fill out to initiate the application process, and all information you might need. Our greatest natural resource is the minds of our children, and the Discovery program is designed for those students who really need this intensity of programming to thrive and really move forward and achieve their full potential. If you have questions, you are more than welcome to contact the main district office. Christina Levesque is our program assistant, and her phone number and email is on the slide, as are mine. You're more than welcome to reach out to me with questions that we may not get answered tonight. And I think we can kind of open this up to some questions and bring in our other panelist. Becca, if you're ready.
Becca, I don't think we can hear you. Can you hear me?
Oh, muted. All right. Apologies, everyone. Thank you. So we're now open for questions. So I'm going to ask you to please drop your questions into the comments below. You're also welcome to email your question, and you can email it to info at dcagt.org. I'm going to read your questions to the speakers, and we're going to try to get to as many questions as we can. So while you're forming your questions, we'll take a few moments and have the panel introduce themselves. So I am going to go ahead and start. I'll introduce myself. So as I said before, I am Becca Koster, and at this time, I am serving as a parent panelist. So my daughter is a very recent graduate of the Discovery Program. She's currently a 7th grader and a twice exceptional learner. Shannon, would you like to go next? Oh, hold on.
Yep, now I'm muted. Okay, hi everybody. Yeah, I'm Shannon Andrus, and I have 3 students who are identified as gifted. And so my daughter was actually in class with Becca's daughter. She's in 7th grade now. So she was in the Discovery Program at Renaissance in Castle Rock. And then I have twins who are both in Discovery at Renaissance as well. So we've been in there a while.
All right. Zachary, would you like to go next?
I'm Zachary. I was in the Gifted and Talented program since 2nd grade, and I am now an 8th grader at Mountain Ridge Middle School.
All right, thank you. And Minka, can you go next, please?
Hi, I'm Minka. I started in Gifted and Talented 3rd grade, I think. I'm a junior at Castleview now.
All right, thank you so much. And last but not least, Ms. Condren, would you like to go?
Hi, everybody. Thanks for being here tonight. I am here in 2 capacities, really. I have 3 daughters who went through the Discovery Program at Pine Lane. Stephanie Kawamura, who is still the 5-6 teacher there. All of my kids had her. And I also have been teaching in the program for a number of years now. So thanks for inviting me to be here.
All right. Thank you, everyone. All right, so our first question is from Nicole, and she asks, if students enter the Discovery Program as a 5th grader, is that a difficult adjustment?
Why don't I go ahead and take this one, because I know our 2 students came in quite early. Before the role that I serve in now, I was the 5-6 Discovery teacher at Renaissance for 10 years. And I can tell you that students would come in every year a new student would come in at least 1 or 2 in 5th or 6th grade. And I think the transition challenges for students like that were not so much even moving schools. They usually tended to be some of the built-in habits that they needed to overcome, such as that they were very used to always having the right answer and being done first and having their hand raised, and sometimes being the only one with the answer. And so usually the greatest challenge for students coming in later grades just tended to be some of those learned habits that the Discovery Program is designed to help them overcome and to give them some challenge. What I can tell you is every year I asked my new students around October or November, whether they had glad they had come to Discovery, even though it was only for 1 year or 2 years. And 99% over the course of a decade said, yes, absolutely, I wouldn't want to be anywhere else.
Is it okay if I toss something in there to piggyback? Okay. Because I also think, I agree with everything that Michelle just said, all those observations. But I think when you get that positive response, it's because finally there's a peer group. It's that social piece, that social learning piece, and being with peers that is a really big positive.
That's wonderful. Thank you both so much. So our next question is from Liz, and she asks, I understand the Discovery curriculum, but I am wondering about the interaction between the Discovery classes and other light grade classes at the schools. Do Discovery students have an opportunity to engage with other non-Discovery students?
Zach or Minka, you want to talk about your experiences?
So when I was in the Discovery Program, especially in the later years, so you have some electives with them or some just special classes like band, music, programming, stuff like that. I had those with the regular classes. Plus, you do some large-scale projects with the entire grade, which is the Discovery Program plus the rest of that grade in the school.
All right, great. Thank
Yeah, as from what I can remember, there wasn't a lot of regular mixing, but for like big scientific projects, like I remember we did ice coring with Miss Brittany's crew when I was in sixth grade. So then, oh wait, no, that was also Discovery. But there have been other field trips and just field work where you go out with the entire grade.
Yeah, and from a parent perspective, I know that at Renaissance, they had opportunities. They had lunch with other kids in their grade. They did do specials with other kids in their grade as well. So there is for us there was opportunity.
I think too in our school, unfortunately not this year, the year of COVID. However, there are a lot of extracurricular type opportunities too, whether it's choir or different clubs or student government, in addition to those other pieces that all three of you have mentioned.
All right. So the next question is from Amy. Is sixth grade in elementary? They recently toured Renaissance Secondary, and it seemed as if sixth grade was over there.
And the answer, of course, and my daughter's at Renaissance Secondary, there's sixth grade at both right now. And there's no immediate plans to change that. I know within the district, sixth grade can be a little weird, and it's with middle schools in some places. But right now, Renaissance Elementary does have six, and Renaissance Secondary also has six. But there is not a Discovery program at Renaissance Secondary.
And I'll answer that also from a wider perspective, because we do have 3 neighborhood middle schools, Sagewood and Cimarron and Parker and Rocky Heights and Highlands Ranch, that also have sixth grade. If your student is in the Discovery program, and that is your home school where you will be sending them for middle school, you have the choice for them to either remain at the Discovery site in sixth grade and then move on to that middle school in seventh grade, or to have them leave the Discovery program in fifth grade and move on to their middle school in sixth grade. So you can make that choice for your child when that time comes.
All right, thank you. So the next question is from Katie, and she asks, how large are class sizes within Discovery?
So the class sizes vary. Up until about 5th or 6th grade, like second grade, we had a pretty small class, like 10, 12 people. And then from there on through like 5th grade, we had about 25 people in our class. And then in 6th grade, a lot of people left to go to STEM. So we went down to like 12 people.
Yeah, our experience has been really varied. At Renaissance last year, my daughter in sixth grade had, I think, 15 kids, which was terrific. And but my third graders were in a class of 27, and 20 of those were third graders, and 7 of them were second graders, and they were second graders. So that was kind of a struggle. That was a lot of students. So, and obviously, Michelle, you know a lot more about this, but it does seem like that can really vary from year to year, school to school.
A couple things that are good to know about the program. It is a needs-based program, so the numbers can vary from year to year. Also, with the exception currently of Northridge, which has what we call straight grades, so a second grade, third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, sixth grade classroom, the grade levels tend to be mixed grades. So a 2-3, a 4-5, a 5-6. But depending on the number of students who demonstrate the need for the Discovery program, those configurations can change. So in my tenure as a Discovery teacher, sometimes we had a 2-3, a 3-4, and a 5-6. Sometimes we had a 2-3, a fourth grade, a fifth grade, and a 5-6. So it's just really good to know that the number of students and the configurations of what those classrooms could look like could very well change. Another thing that is good to know is that while the Discovery program locations regionally at Renaissance, Pine Lane, and Northridge have been fairly stable at those sites, the locations can change as well. So that's just something I want everybody to know when they are thinking about the Discovery program and looking into it as well.
And I think you've always mentioned this too, Michelle. The bottom line is that the configuration is based on the needs of the kids.
Right.
We don't say, okay, only 10 third graders and 12 second graders, whatever it is,
Right.
it's based on the needs, and then we make the classrooms accordingly.
Yes, and that we do align with the number of students within Douglas County in the other grade levels, 2nd through 6th grade as well.
All right, so the next question is from Kristen. Can you tell us about homework load?
From what I remember, we didn't actually get a whole lot of homework. Basically, homework would be you bring home what you didn't finish in class, and usually if you had a good work ethic, you could finish it in class. I did not have a good work ethic, so I ended up with a lot of homework, but for the most part, there wasn't much.
For me, it really varied on my teacher. In 5th grade, I had a teacher who handed out a lot of homework, and in 6th grade, I had almost no homework. So it just varies from teacher to teacher.
All right, thank you so much. Kristen has another question. I heard there are lessons on social emotional challenges that these kids face. What does that mean?
Margaret, do you want to talk about what that looks like for you at Pine Lane?
Yeah, I'm happy to. In fact, I consider that one of the important pieces for what we have for our students. We have mental health support. So once a week, we have our school psychologist comes in and works with the kids. We know that there are, in particular, issues that can come up around perfectionism, anxiety, just various issues. So for example, my kids, just this last week, we've gone through a lot about, growth mindset. And I know we hear that all the time, but they had little videos around what's literally happening inside of your brain as you're learning new materials and facing challenges. And it really, what I love about it is it provides a common vocabulary for the kids, and it takes the shame piece away. This is just how I am. This is what's going on. And it helps make it a real conversation that all the kids can have. So there's that support from the peers, from the group, this is just how we are, as well as the professional support from the mental health provider. And we also have small groups available around specific topics with the mental health provider.
Wonderful, thank you. So our next question is from Emily, and she asks, is it difficult to apply for Discovery as a student who has been homeschooled up until this year, so 3rd grade? He hasn't had formal testing, but I have all his work and work curriculum.
So when you go to look on the website that I mentioned, the Douglas County website where the application materials, there is a specific link in the application for homeschool students. And that information will list out everything that from a homeschool student we would need. And if as you're looking at that, if there are specific questions you have, please feel free to email me or call our office. I believe my phone number is on that website as well for you to call with any specific individual questions.
Great, thank you, Michelle. So the next question is from Katie, and the question is, for the student panelists, how would you describe your transition from the Discovery program into middle school? And did you have any challenges?
For me, it was pretty painless and straightforward. I remember we had to test into a math class, and given that in Discovery we end up pretty ahead of everyone else, you maybe test into a math class that's a year or two ahead of everyone else, but integrating with every other student in all your normal classes is fairly straightforward and painless.
And Zachary, what are your thoughts on this question? How was your transition?
It was also, for me, it was also pretty painless and just smooth. I think one of the more difficult things was just memorizing where all your classes were and just getting used to how big the school building was compared to the small classroom you were used to. But it was pretty simple.
Thank you both. All right, so the next question is from Katie. Do students have to be in the top percentages in all skill levels? For example, a child who is very advanced in reading, but on the line for math? Is discovery right for them?
That's really going to depend on that body of evidence we talked about. As we said, students who typically thrive in the program have demonstrated advanced needs in multiple areas, but that doesn't mean all areas. So one of the pieces around discovery is that a student can't be below grade level in an academic area, but there will be some areas, science, math, or whatnot, that will be at grade level, and others that will be advanced, and discovery may still be appropriate for them. Again, that placement process, that body of evidence is rather large to be able to give the screening team that recommends placement a good sense of the student overall in different areas, and for them to really use their expertise of the program to dig into the portfolio and all of the different pieces that they can see about that student to see if that placement would be appropriate, if they would be a student that would thrive in that environment.
Thank you, Michelle. So the next question is from Kristen. Is there a COGAT cutoff that is an absolute in or an absolute no?
There is not a cutoff. Again, it is that entire body of evidence that we really look at to see whether the program is appropriate. And when you think back to when we were talking about, again, the students who thrive in that program, those are some of the basic characteristics that we're looking through that portfolio for. But there is not a specific cutoff that's an absolute yes or an absolute no for COGAT, for achievement, for CMAS, for any of those pieces.
All right, thank you, Michelle. So our next question is from Katie. What percentage of kids in the program stay in the program until middle school?
That is an excellent question, and I don't know that I have those metrics right at my fingertips. I can tell you from personal experience, at least for the classes that I worked with in the time I was in the Discovery program, that that percentage is rather high that come through. It's more common to have students who come in later, maybe not in second grade, but in third, fourth, fifth, and then stay till the end. So I tended to see more variety and variance at the beginning when they came in versus when they left. Margaret, did you want to speak to that a little?
Yeah, I think in our building, generally what happens is kids stay to the bitter end. The big difference is the sixth grade piece. You know, for example, if their home middle school is Sagewood, or if it's, you know, Rocky Heights or whatever, and they may or may not opt to stay with us for sixth grade. They may decide to go with their middle school for sixth grade, but that's usually, they're there. Generally, I mean, if you think about it, the continuity that they have with their peer group and being in the building, the stability of that tends to be a positive for our population. I can't speak to what it's like for the our two student panelists here. They might be able to help with that too. Just
for me, I really, out of all the kids that were in the program, I really only knew one who left to go back to the regular. There were a lot of people who left in fifth grade to go to their other middle schools that had sixth, seventh, and eighth for middle school. But other than that, they did make it till middle school. I only really knew one person who didn't.
It's because once you're in, it's a whole different community, and it's really refreshingly close, and you're actually learning at the proper level with other people who are. So no one really wants to go back, you know?
Yeah, I know from a parent perspective that my daughter was very adamant that she stay until the program finished. She felt very seen, very heard, very understood by both the students and the teachers, and she had a wonderful experience, and it was very important for her to stay. All right, so the next question is from Emily. Do students reapply each school year if they wish to continue in Discovery once accepted? And do they have the option to go back to the regular programming at any point?
No, you do not need to reapply each year. Although the kind of those pieces we're looking at for placement, our teachers do tend to continue to reevaluate students to make sure that the Discovery Program continues to be the appropriate placement. If as a parent, you at any time decide that for you and your family, this is no longer appropriate, you would contact the teacher, and there's an entire process that will allow you to exit the program for that reason that you feel as a family would make that move necessary.
All right, thank you. So our next question is from Kristen. When do they find out acceptance after they've applied?
This year, most likely the formal communication would be toward the end of January. Now that is for what we call our formal application timeframe, which is what is open right now. Recognizing that in this very unusual year, that things could change rapidly, and that might need to, that timeline might need to be adjusted. Discovery Program applications can be turned in at any time during the year. The formal application process that is open right now does have a deadline of December 4th for getting those application pieces in. And that is simply because this is the time of year that our current students are letting us know if they will be continuing in the program next year, and for numbers and for us to be able to appropriately figure out those class configurations that we discussed. But a Discovery Program application can be submitted at any time. And for this formal piece, back to that original question, we anticipate that we'll be able to communicate determinations that last week in January.
Thank you. All right, so the next question is from Amy. And what percentage of applicants are accepted?
That will vary every year. It's a needs-based program. We try to make sure to place any student who demonstrates the need for the program. So there theoretically could be a year where there's 200 applicants and 200 acceptances. There theoretically could be a year with 200 applicants and 10 acceptances. It completely depends on who is applying and who demonstrates the need that says this program is appropriate for them.
All right, thank you. So our next question is from Lori, and it's, does the Discovery Program also do 2 EPRs a year, or are grades given in a different manner? Do parents receive more in-depth feedback on the students' work?
I'm gonna let Margaret and the parents take this one.
All right. I know that in my building we have 2 EPRs. I think that's the case for all elementary. Holy cow. A couple things that come to mind because we're getting ready for EPR season here. For example, I have students who are grade level or 2 above in math. So the EPR will have comments that are specific to the grade level on which they're working. I put a lot of comments in around specifically what the content is or what the projects are, how the student is doing, as well as the evaluation piece that's just on the EPR. Hope that helps.
I always found that the student-led conferences and the parent-teacher conferences were the most helpful, and certainly at Renaissance, we have those in the fall. I don't remember the exact schedule, but I feel like there's several opportunities a year, sometimes with the student, sometimes just the teacher one-on-one. But that was always, and all of the Discovery teachers were so wonderful about pulling out the students' work. We're looking through it. They're using different evaluations. For my daughter in 6th grade, the teacher, she had found a reading assessment for high school level because she had tapped out through 10th grade. And so she was finding new assessments to evaluate her reading and, things like that. So that's where I found much more than the EPRs. It's just, what are they doing? What's going on? And always really happy to check in, especially if something's missing or whatever. So I just found that communication piece was there, and they were so knowledgeable, all of them, about the different aspects of how my kids
Shannon,
learn.
thanks for bringing that up, because something that comes up too is those advanced learning plans have taken on more meaning for us, or not the plan itself, but the meetings that go around it. You know, the goal setting conferences. I learn more about the students then, their families. And then as we go through, we have conferences next week. You know, I agree with you so much. I love those opportunities to learn and hear more from the parent perspective, as well as the students showcasing their work. Love it.
Yeah, definitely. All right. So the next question is from Amy. For parents on the panel, did your kids want to go into Discovery, or was it a push because you thought it was right for them?
Okay, I have the parent story, even though mine are now in their 20s.
Yeah, please.
My eldest was really, really happy at her Montessori. Her application actually says, I don't want to do this. I photocopied it because there's a piece that the students write out. She was happy where she was. Once she got into Discovery, she loved it. And she's still friends with so many of those kids, those families we're still friends with. We still socialize with them, albeit via Zoom now. But so I just think sometimes that happens. It's the truth. And parents are always appalled when I say that. They say, you let your kids say they didn't want to go into the program. And she did a lovely essay around it. So what can I say?
I'll just say I was applying when my kids were in first grade. They all went in second grade. So my older daughter, I don't think knew too much about it. The younger ones did because they're older sisters in Discovery, and I think there was maybe just a little more awareness there. And I think they were open to it. I certainly did the application process coming from it. You know, what do you think? My older daughter was so advanced in reading, I felt like she probably did need to be in the Discovery program because she tested at 6th grade level and first grade. And her reading level was so high above. My two younger ones were doing really well in first grade, but I wanted to talk to the teachers. I wanted to see, and, you know, is this a good fit for them? So I think they're okay on it. I will say, just a story for the parents out there. My son has tested, we've had WISC, all sorts of testing. It was definitely said these kids need to be in a gifted program. My son is reading on grade level, and that has made it hard for him in the Discovery program because most of the kids are reading above grade level, especially when he's in 2nd grade with 3rd graders. So if you're in 2nd grade with 3rd graders reading at a 5th grade level, things are moving really fast. And he actually, after the first few months, the teacher said, well, his math is basically terrible. He can't do this math. And I thought, his math is off the charts. He knows he's way ahead in math. What's going on? He's having trouble reading and reading fast enough for all the word problems. So that's been something, you know, I've had to weigh and balance. That is that the right fit for him when he can conceptualize these math concepts, or he understands the problem solving, but his reading is not at a speed and at a level that many of the other kids. So I think I made the right choices, but he's had more struggles than my girls have. So it's something I continue to think about.
Hey, I'm wondering what the student panelists have to add to this. How did you feel when you went through the process? Do you even remember doing it, applying and filling out your essay and talking to your parents about it?
Not really.
I have a vague memory of answering some questions and writing a couple things, but I honestly barely remember it. So I think I didn't really want to do it, but definitely once I was in, would not go back.
I'll pop in from a teacher perspective. One thing I learned through the years is that if you do move ahead, what I highly suggest is that if you apply and you're offered placement and you decide to accept that, the worst thing you can say to your child is, well, we'll try it. If you don't like it, we can go back. Because there are students who, even if it is appropriate, even if they love it and like the challenge, that they'll wait you out 6 months. I did see it happen once. They waited them out. And so it just kind of a word of caution in that, to kind of have those conversations. But please don't tell them, we'll try it.
Yeah, definitely. All right. So our next question is from Kristen. I assume these kids are taught they might be GT, but not better / above other kids. How are they taught this?
Margaret, do you want to talk a little bit to that?
Okay. Mike, I have to say my students are pretty amazing in that we just talk about it as we just learn differently. We just have a different way that we need to go about our learning. It doesn't mean that it's a better way, just as you can have 5 kids come up with the same math answer to a problem, but they had 5 different ways of getting there. We just have a different way of going about our learning.
Yeah, and that's what we talk about at home. That, you know, everybody learns differently. And I know that for that math example, in one of the grades, my daughter was being taught a very specific way to do math. And so she was like, well, how do you do it? So we're a multi-generational family. So she gave my dad the math problem, and she gave her dad the math problem, and she gave me the math problem, and then she did the math problem so that we could all do the math problem independently and then look to see how we did it. So she just wanted to see what kind of thinkers we were. All right, so our next question is from Emily. Are students ever moved up or down grade levels within Discovery, or are the subjects accelerated so that's not necessary?
You know, it's unusual. It's unusual to be grade accelerated as well as in Discovery. It's not, though, completely out of the question. It does happen. But the Discovery program is designed for that acceleration, even down to specific skills within content, as well as the content itself. So it's not something you find very often, but again, sometimes we have students who have been grade accelerated and then come into the program. Sometimes they do come into the program and we see that they need something even more intensive than what the program is offering. But because of the way that the program is set up and designed to meet the needs of learners that are highly gifted, that tend to require that type of intensity, it's not typical at all. You know, and something just before we move on from that last question about being elite, you know, one thing we try to talk about a lot, and not just in Discovery, but when we think about gifted learners in general, one of the programming standards from the National Association of Gifted Children is about gifted students being able to understand themselves, their giftedness. And so, as Margaret said, really focusing on the fact that students who are in the Discovery program are there because that is what provides for their educational needs. Very similar to special education and the different differentiation pieces or programs to meet the needs of learners that need those extra supports, that the Discovery program is just another way that we support the educational and social emotional needs of our highly gifted learners. And therefore, it's about need versus being elite, and about supporting that different way of thinking and different way of learning.
I want to go back to that one piece about the grade skipping. One of the things I loved about the Discovery program for my kids was that I grew up in a really small town, and I went to college. I was 2 months into being 16, and I was so grateful that we had Discovery in our community, because it allowed my kids to do acceleration, yet be with their developmental peers. It wasn't about what grade you were, it was about what you needed. And I think that's wonderful.
Another thing is that sometimes if somebody's really accelerated in a certain subject, like math, they'll actually go up just to the next grade level for just math class, and then spend the rest of their time with their class. And sometimes people come over from the regular, for example, 4th grade, and they go into 4th grade Discovery for math.
Thank you. All right, so our next question is from Amy. For the student panelists, were you then bored in middle school, or are you being challenged enough?
Well, in middle school, you test into your courses and you also pick them, so you end up learning where you think you ought to be or just flat out where you ought to be. So I don't recall being bored. If you were good with writing and reading, they put you in an honors English course. If you test high enough in math, you end up doing geometry while everyone else is doing pre-algebra. So you do learn on the right level.
Yeah, for us, when my class transitioned from elementary school to middle school, everybody in my entire class was guaranteed to go into advanced language arts, plus at least advanced math, and they can test higher to get into a higher math class.
Thank you both. So our next question is from Emily. She says her son talks a lot about feeling like he's always waiting around for everyone around him to finish assignments. He sometimes feels bored with his work because it isn't challenging enough. He also regularly helps his peers with their work. Do the students/parents have any recollection of feeling or having their kids feel a similar way before entering discussion?
I remember in like second grade, I'd actually go through all my math fast enough that then when I was done, they'd put me out in the hallway and read through a novel with, I think, a sixth grader. So definitely that. And then even after you leave the discovery program and you end up in math classes, there are, like I took stats last year and you end up at a table and there are a lot of upperclassmen sitting there like, can you help me with this? So.
Yeah, I had similar experiences with that, where before you enter discovery program, you're finishing before everybody else, and sometimes you're helping them, and just you normally just what I did was I normally just picked up a book and read while I was waiting.
I will say, my kids go to Renaissance. We live right by it. So even before entering the Discovery program, they were there. And I will say the people who are considering Renaissance, I hope you know about the Voyage program and the overnight trips and all of that. If you don't, like if you're accepted down the road, it's a very special piece about Renaissance. But I will say Renaissance actually was wonderful in kindergarten and first grade, that they have some learning specialists there. They'll have a math specialist. So I don't think my kids got too bored because there was a lot of differentiation and they were able to like go with Miss Amanda, for those of you who know Renaissance, and do math. And even I came in as a parent volunteer and did a great books program in first grade, which I think Mia was in, Becca. And so the teacher was having, her highest readers go out and do a great books program with a parent. So they were working hard to keep them engaged and differentiate. So I'm thankful for the Discovery program, but I also think Renaissance was doing a pretty awesome job of trying to meet everyone where they were.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, it looks like we have just a couple minutes left, and our questions have stopped flowing in. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and thank everyone for joining us. So thank you to all you panelists. We appreciate your time and your knowledge. And then also, thank you everyone for joining us, for learning with us. We have another session scheduled on Wednesday, December the 7th, and it's gifted learners transition from middle and high school. So we hope you'll be able to join us for that. Family information nights and class registrations are going to be here before we know it. It's already November. So the conversation is going to focus on transition timelines and placement considerations for gifted students moving into middle or high school next fall. So I did put a survey link in the chat if you all would take some time to let us know your thoughts so we can continue to improve these. And I hope everyone has a wonderful evening. Thank you all so much for joining.